So today I'm attempting something that looks wonderfully simple, but it really isn't. Like me, you may have watched those shorts where an artist just lays down 2 or 3 brush strokes, a swish and a flick, and somehow they create the most beautiful flowers. And it looks so easy, you think, I could do that. And then you try, and suddenly it's not quite as simple as it seems. So bear with me, because I start off with some really poor results, but I do eventually figure out how to do it, and I'm going to talk you through exactly how I did it. So the reason I'm learning this is because I want to learn how to paint flowers onto glass with my glass paints, but I figured that I needed to learn how to do them on paper first, because I was very much struggling to do them on the glass. So I have a collection of different acrylic paints. Some of them are quite old and quite thick, and some of them are smoother and more flowing. So I tried painting these flowers with all of these. So on most of the examples, I had seen that the artist loaded 2 colours onto the brush, but nowhere did it really show you how to load those colours on the brush. So this was entirely guesswork at the start. So I began with this hyacinth style flower, and a few dabs in, I really wasn't impressed. The colour started out in a nice 2-tone manner, but then it very quickly blended into what I can only describe as a pink mush. And the stems, let's just say they looked a bit more like tree trunks than stems. Now I do have some painting experience, but I normally draw everything out on the page first, and then I paint within the lines. So painting directly onto the blank page without those guidelines made me feel a little bit, I found it quite daunting, and I didn't feel very confident. Anyway, I kept trying, and I realised that I needed to dab fresh paint on the brush much more often than I was doing, and I wasn't cleaning it in between strokes either, but that created a really thick, almost impasto layer. So all I was doing was pressing the paintbrush down and then wiping it down the page a little bit. It was kind of working, but yeah, I still wasn't comfortable and happy with the results. So after about 5 attempts, I started watching the paint more closely as I was putting it down on the page. I reloaded the brush only when the 2 colours started to blend too much, and that really helped with the visual aspect, but I still wasn't happy. So I moved on and I tried a kind of like a sweet pea effect. That didn't go well either. So I decided to go back to basics. I mean, these are kind of okay, but these flowers, I wasn't convinced that they were quite as beautiful as the ones that I was aiming for. So I went back and I tried out some different brushes. I tried moving the brush in different ways. I was constantly referring to those shorts and videos, trying to copy the techniques, but it still wasn't happening. I was getting a little bit frustrated, to say the least, but I was really doing my best to master this. And at this point, I was avoiding putting the stems in entirely for the sake of my confidence, because I knew I'd end up ruining them, so instead I decided I was going to draw them in later, which I did in mediums that I was far more comfortable with. Eventually, after about 5 or 6 or 7 painting sessions, I realised that I needed to stop focusing so much on the colour, the two-tone colour, and focus a little bit more on the movement of the brush itself. And that's when things shifted. So instead of trying to master 2 techniques, I wanted to master 1, and then we could move on to the two-tone colour later. So after a lot more practice, I decided that a filbert brush worked best. Using it slightly on its side, pressed down firmly and twisting it gently as you pull it down towards the centre of the flower. The paint, it needed to be quite gloopy and thick and not too runny. So I'm going to talk you step by step through the method that I found worked best for me. So all you need to do is hold it properly vertical, press it down onto the paper, turn it slightly, twist it and raise it up slightly whilst brushing it sideways to where you want the petal to end. Load the brush back up again. And for the next petal, at a slight angle, press down, drag down slightly, push back up just a tiny bit, and then bring your brush back down to the base of the flower. Load up again for the next petal. And this time we're going to go vertical with the brush again. You want to leave enough space so your petals don't touch. Press down, twist slightly to the right, and then bring the brush on its edge back to the base of the flower, lifting it just slightly as you do. And again, vertical brush, press down, twist slightly to the left, and on its side bring the brush back to the centre of the flower. I just wiped my brush clean here as the flowers were a bit more orange than yellow. So I loaded up the brush again. Leave a gap, push down, pull it down slightly, up, and then down to the centre of the flower. Load up again. Push down a little bit harder, just to make a wider petal. And then slowly bring your brush down. You can touch these up as you need to with a little bit of extra paint, or if you haven't pressed quite hard enough. So each of these petals required a slightly different movement. Do make sure that you leave some space so the petals don't touch each other. So some of that might have sounded a bit technical, but after enough repetition, your hand really starts to understand it. And I'm hoping that over the next few months, I can become quicker at this. But from a practicing perspective, take your time, move the brush slowly until you really get a feel for how the paint is going to go down on the page. So what I've learned is this: after enough repetition, this becomes easier. Try not to overthink it. A hint of a petal is often enough, and the thickness of the paint makes a huge difference. You don't want a really runny paint. It might take longer to dry, but it gives a really nice effect when it is. Now these flowers aren't perfect, but considering where I started, I'm quite happy with them. But the important thing is that I understand that the way that you move the brush is incredibly important, and that's what these professional artists are not telling us. So my leaves and stems still need quite a bit of work, so that's where my next practice is going to come in. And of course, I'll be trying out these petals and flowers on glass at some point in the future. If you'd like to try this yourself, expect to use a lot of practice paper. Expect a few tree trunk stems. But also expect that slowly you will start to learn the twist, press and glide technique. And when you do, it's actually quite satisfying. So I hope you've enjoyed my little art experiments today. If you've got any tips or tricks to create beautiful simple flowers, please put them in the comments below. They'll not only help me, but they'll help anyone else that's watching this video trying to learn this technique. And if I ever master the leaves, I expect that will come up in a future video too. We've all got to start somewhere, so why not here?